Hello and welcome to this book recommendation video. Someone requested that I do one. I was reticent because for me, I normally, like I said, read around 300 books per year. I've read since I was a child, voraciously. I've only logged those books very recently, I guess, sporadically as well. So the percentage of books that I've actually logged is not indicative of the whole. So there's probably so many books that are 5 stars to me, but I just don't remember. I really don't. There's just too many books to remember, and I don't remember. Many times I picked up a book that obviously I hadn't put on Goodreads, and I've read it and it's felt familiar, really familiar. And then I'll realize at some point, oh, I've read this before. So that's the downside of not keeping track of what you read, especially if you read a lot. So what I've done is I've just gone through whatever I've rated 5 stars on Goodreads and selected a few of those. If anything is more than 6 months ago read, I can't really stand by it. You know, it's like, oh, Chanel of even a year and a half ago is not the same Chanel now. Like you'll notice when YouTubers do I still think it's 5 stars? A lot of the times they're like, actually, no, I don't think it's still 5 stars. So if I've read it in the last 6 months, probably I can back it and say, yeah, it's a 5-star read, but I thought I'd give it a go anyway, and just give you a list of some books. I'm not going to talk about all of them because some of them I probably don't even remember the plot, but I'll do my best. I will absolutely do my best. Okay, so I'm going to start with fiction, and then I'm going to do some non-fiction ones, and then I'm going to end with some kids and middle grade books. So let me start with the fiction. So I'm starting with The Shadow of the Wind. This is kind of like almost a classic. I don't really remember the details, but I remember being absolutely engrossed in it and just thinking about it for days on end and recommending it to everybody at the time when I read it. It's also a book I still see frequently talked about. So it's one of those sort of safe bet recommendations when someone wants something with a bit of magic and mystery. So that's the first book. Then we've got White Oleander. So I read this when I was a teenager and it struck a chord with me. I think I then reread it as like a 20-something woman and I was still blown away by the writing. The story is about a young girl who sort of has to go through the foster system because of something her mother did, and how she grows up and changes throughout that time in her relationships with other people. It's dark, it's gritty, but I just did remember thinking it was beautiful. So that's White Oleander. The next book I'm recommending is A Monster Calls. So this is, well, I remember this made me cry. It's about a young boy and his mother is dying of cancer and he starts talking to the yew tree, who's like sort of like a monster. And yeah, it was very moving. I did shed copious amounts of tears. I love the way it was written and it was a touching story. So that's A Monster Calls. Then we've got Lord of the Rings by the great J.R.R. Tolkien. I was a Tolkien nerd. Okay, I went into this heavy. I think I was 14 when I stumbled across The Lord of the Rings and I was obsessed. I learned Elvish. I think it's called Quenya. I can't remember the name, guys, but I learned Elvish. I opened up myself an Elvish language Hotmail account. You know, I was that girl. And then the movies came out and I was like living my dream. I was obsessed with Legolas. Legolas was my crush along with Arwen. I got blue contacts so I could look like Arwen. It was a time. I still have my One Ring to Rule Them All on my keychain. And look, man, I'm a bit like a hobbit. I wanted to dream that, yeah, I'd be an elf. I'd be a hobbit, bro. We all know this. Lord of the Rings is just a fantastic high fantasy book with a cast of characters. Yeah, there's not a lot of female representation, but there is some. The females that are in it are amazing. So I just love it. It's a feel-good book to me. It's a bit of chicken soup for the soul and yeah, fantastic fantasy book. Then I'm recommending The Princess Bride. So I do prefer the movie over the book because I just think the movie is so well done and I love the cast and I adore it. But the book is great too. I read the book originally and then saw the film and it's just a nostalgic piece of my childhood. I've put it in the adult one though because, I don't know, I didn't want to overload the children's section and I think adults can enjoy this book as well. It's a bit camp, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, it's humorous. You know, boy meets girl, falls in love, but all of these forces drive them apart and there's a swashbuckling adventure and yeah, Princess Bride. And then I'm recommending A Court of Mist and Fury, which I know is the second in the series, but it's the only one in that series that I rated a shining 5 stars. I was obsessed with this book. I was obsessed with Rivsand. I loved it. It was amazing. It was phenomenal. I reread it so many times. So it's part of the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, or ACOTAR, but I just really loved it. I'm a sucker for Fae. I really am, and there's Fae in this, and there's Fae of the Court of like Night and Stars, and yep. So Court of Mist and Fury is definitely a recommendation for me. You do have to get through the first one to get to it though. Then I've got Defy the Stars. I wanted to put a sci-fi in here, and this was my 5-star rated one. I also love A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I just want to give that a shout out, but I really love Defy the Stars because it's got a really great romance in it, and that just elevates things for me. If there's a great story already and world building and writing, and then you throw in an awesome romance, I'm sold. The Undying King by Grace Draven. I just picked one of her books. I think Grace Draven is a fantastic romance writer. She's a bit alternative in that most of her books, the love interests are not considered conventionally attractive, but their relationships tend to also be slow burn. It's two people learning about each other, loving each other, coming in with their faults and their flaws, and I just love her stuff, and The Undying King was one of my favorites of hers. And then we've got Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This was just such a fun, cozy fantasy read where it was very gentle. Even though a lot was happening, there was murder and mayhem, but it just didn't feel adrenaline inducing. I freaking loved the animal companions. So you've got a bone dog and a demon possessed chicken. I loved the two older witches and their banter. The romance in this one for me was a little too G-rated. It didn't go where I wanted it to go, but it was still lovely. I enjoyed the story thoroughly, and it got me onto T. Kingfisher. And then we've got A Matter of Temptation, which is a historical romance. This is one of my favorite historical romances of all time. I love both characters, and when I love both characters and I'm crushing on them equally, I am blown away. It's just these two, and then put them together. Are you joking? But they're intelligent, they're kind. I love the slow burn. I'm a sucker for slow burn, and I just enjoyed the hell out of this book. And then I'm going to recommend Yours Truly, which is another sequel, but I liked it more than the first. So Yours Truly is the second in a series by Abby Jimenez, and it's two people. It's a contemporary love story with anxiety rep, and once again, a slow burn romance, and I just ate it up. It was well done. Abby Jimenez at the moment is my favorite contemporary romance author. Then we've got Once Upon a Broken Heart. This was cute, it was fun, it was a little bit different. Sometimes with fantasy, they all can feel a bit same if you've read that kind of trope and that story and those characters before, but this was different when you've got different gods and different worlds and different dynamics, and their relationship doesn't go down the predictable road, but I really enjoyed it, and a lot of people really love this book, so it's a safe bet, I think. And I'm going to end it with my latest 5-star read, which was Small Miracles. So this to me is Good Omens meets The Good Place. You've got angels and fallen angels or demons. Some of them have friendships with each other. You've got them, obviously both working with humanity, some to tempt, some to save. And I loved the book. The angels in this are gender neutral, and they wear genders like clothing. Oh, I loved all of it. It's so funny, and yet it was heartwarming. There were sentences that really punched me in the gut, and actually made me laugh out loud. So I had a delightful time with this book, and it's just increased my desire to consume chocolate, let's just say that. So that was delightful. Now I'm going to recommend some nonfiction books. So I'm starting with The Perfect Day Plan, Unlock the Secrets of Your Body. So this is the book that introduced me to TCM. So this is based on the traditional Chinese medicine meridian clock or body clock. I found a lot of success with structuring my day in accordance with this, but like I said, it was a gateway into TCM, which I am a big fan of and I use in my health practices. So it's very easy to read, and like I said, I had success with it when I did implement it. Unconditional Parenting. I loved this book when I read it. It was very healing for me. It sort of helped me reparent myself. It really gave me the basis of how I was going to structure my parenting. I do attachment and gentle parenting, I guess is what you'd call it. But this book was really great, and I recommend it. The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. Honestly, this book took the world by storm, and for good reason. introduced me to minimalism. I became a minimalist. I went a bit extreme in my minimalism at some point, but it really did give me a greater appreciation for my possessions and what I choose to purchase, what I choose to bring into my home and keep into my home. And honestly, like, it just really changed my life. It really did change my life. Just how I store my clothing as well, like brilliant. Just everything about her. I came from a family of hoarders. So I was very determined not to end up that way, but at the same time, I still accumulated crap, like I think we all do. And then this book just really got me to actually tune in and connect to my possessions. I know that sounds weird, but there's some Shintoism in there, and I actually do resonate with that. So I love this book. I reread it at least once a year when I feel myself maybe getting a bit too caught up in consumerism again, and it yanks me right out of there, and I go back to actually caring for my things, allowing them to bring me joy. Okay, and then I'm recommending The Circadian Code, Lose Weight, Supercharge Your Energy, and Transform Your Health from Morning to Midnight. This is the best book that I have read on the circadian rhythm. So it's based on your inner body clock, and it tells you how to live in sync with it so that you can really have the most optimal health, so you can have the best sleep, so your metabolism can work well. It is a great book. I highly recommend it. I've instilled a lot of the practices into my life, and I'm still doing them to this day. I think he's a great man in his field, and yeah, I highly recommend this book if you want to improve your well-being. Teach Yourself to Sleep, an Ex-Insomniac's Guide. So for many years, I suffered with constant insomnia. From the age of 14 is when it started, and I actually started orthodontics at that age, so I don't know if there's a correlation there, but and I read a lot of sleep books, like this one I think was my favorite one. So there's so many out there. This one was one of my favorites. What the fuck is tarot and how to do it? This was fun. After you've read a lot of very sort of dry, factual tarot books, it's really entertaining to read one that has a lot of the author's personality infused into it, who has their own interpretations of the cards, especially when they relay it to the modern life. And I just had a real fun time reading this, and it gave me a new fresh spin on tarot. How to keep house while drowning. House maintenance, cleaning and chores for people who have chronic illnesses, who have mental health conditions, who just really struggle with maintaining a home, and how it impacts them and their health and their mental health. I just love the way it was written. It was great, and I thought it was fantastic. Magic of Mushrooms, Fungi in Folklore, Superstition and Traditional Medicine. This book is beautiful. I purchased it so that I could continue to look at it. If you love fungi, you'll love this book, because like I said, it looks at the whole scope of all of fungi's uses and modalities in that, in the earthly realm and also in the spiritual realm, in folklore and traditions and medicine and as poison. It's just amazing. And it's, like I said, it's beautifully illustrated. The illustrations were gorgeous. There was just enough information to give you a sort of basic understanding. It's not in depth, but it wanted to have quantity, sort of, so it could touch on everything it possibly could, to give you an insight into that. And then it might further pique your interest, and you can continue looking at that field. But I loved it. I think it's beautiful, and highly recommend. New Choices in Natural Healing. I'm someone that likes to complement my health practices with holistic practices, and this book has an amazing array of holistic modalities based on conditions. So you can say, I have a runny nose, and it'll tell you essential oils, Ayurveda, TCM, hydrotherapy, sound therapy, nutrition advice, just everything that's considered natural, I guess, or just alternative to Western practices is in here. So I love it. I love to reference it, see what I can do to support myself when I am ill. Dirty Genes. This book's fantastic if you are interested in epigenetics, which as someone who has autoimmune conditions and other conditions, I am genetic conditions. I loved it. I ended up getting my DNA tested. I found a lot of answers in doing that, which was, as anyone who knows, when you've got issues and you finally get an answer as to why that's happening, it's such a relief, and you feel vindicated, like justified that, you weren't just being a hypochondriac. So yeah, Dirty Genes helped too with me, obviously, understanding my DNA tests and how I can support my body in hopefully not expressing some of the faulty genes that I have and avoiding some conditions, but also in how I can support the conditions I have or get them into remission. And yeah, I had my children tested too, so I can see, okay, they might end up having issues with this. How can I support them now? What supplementation can I give them? What nutrients in that do they need? What sort of lifestyle practices? So I love this one. And then I've got Breath. Was it Breath or Breathe by James Nestor? This was fantastic. So and you think a book just about breathing, but man, yeah, you learn a lot. Mouth breathing, not cool. Nose breathing is the way. Mewing is good. Eating foods that have texture and are not all mush so that you actually work your jaw. But yeah, like it was just one of those things where I was like, oh, I need to really focus on my breathing. Wim Hof is another person that I'll give a shout out to because they also introduced me to better breathing practices and things like hot and cold therapy, which I also highly recommend. So those were the non-fiction books. Onto the children's and middle grade. I'm starting with The Little Prince. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It is a book that you can read at every age of your life and you will grasp something different from it. You will view it in a different lens. It never gets old to me and I absolutely bloody adore it. We have Harry Potter. I couldn't do a list without Harry Potter. I grew up in the Harry Potter era and it was just, I still love it to this day. I'm now watching it with my children and it's such a treat. I know that the author has her drama, but I just don't care about her. I do love the story and the characters and I have to recommend the book because they're wonderful and the movie's great too. The Hunger Games. This is like the dystopian book of the century when I was a teenager. And once again, the movies are also good. Yeah, loved it. It's a game where teenagers have to fight to the death in an arena. I have to recommend it. You know, some of these very famous books are very famous for a reason. They're good. They're easy to devour. Matilda by Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl was king to me when I was a child. I loved his more darker humor and I read everything of his, but Matilda I resonated with in my soul. I felt like I was her. I longed for a Miss Honey to have in my life and it was a way for me to escape and to feel like I was seen. I just adore that book and the original movie with Danny DeVito. I love that movie, man. So Matilda. Bad Guys by Aaron Blabey. Both of my children absolutely love this. I loved reading it out loud to them. It's very funny. They now come in color, which is amazing. It's just brought it really to life. It's funny. It's about, you know, anthropomorphic animals who are bad guys and good guys, and these bad guys don't want to be the bad guys anymore. They're trying to be the good guys, and it's just hilarious hijinks. Maybe by Kobe Yamada. This is a beautiful children's book. It's well written. It's a lovely story, beautiful pictures. My daughter ended up getting the pig maybe from the book as her plush, and yeah, it was delightful. Lightfall, a fantastic middle grade graphic novel about a little girl in a world trying to save it from being enveloped by darkness. It's got really lush imagery. It's like very fall, autumn, cozy vibes in the pictures. Easy to read, different, unique story, which I don't know where it's actually going. And it's cool when I read something that I can't predict. Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This was delightful. You know, it's just a story about a girl trying to save her man and growing up along the way, finding herself, a lot of like sort of pirate kind of themes on it, found family aspects, but a really fun time. The Paper Bag Princess. This is a picture book that just would make me laugh. It's very feminist vibes. The princess goes to save the prince and then realizes he's an absolute douche and decides, well, I don't actually want you. I'm just going to be with myself. It's fun. It's a good thing. The illustrations are cute. She's a great main character and role model for little girls, so The Paper Bag Princess. The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making. I know it's a mouthful of a title, but this is really lyrical, beautiful writing. It's one I would recommend to adults as well to read. It's stunning, it's different, it's lush, the world building. The girl September also goes through a growth, and I really loved this book. And I'm going to end it with The Phantom Tollbooth, which is one of my favorite books too as a child. Oh my God, Milo's adventures through the land of like Dictionopolis, where you get to eat letters and math and the princess's rhyme and reason and the land of conclusions, which you always jump to. This was just such a fun book, plays on puns and metaphors, and it was so different and unique. I love it. I still read it as an adult because I still get enjoyment from it. So The Phantom Tollbooth is my final recommendation. These are all the books that I'm recommending in this. I might in the future, once I've gotten quite a few 5-star books in different genres racked up, because I've just started like tracking them again, we'll do themed ones. But yeah, this was just the one that's just a schmozzle of books that I've read over the decades, basically. But I hope maybe there's something in there that piques your interest and is a good time for you. But that's all of the books that I recommend. I hope that wherever you are having a dazzling morning, afternoon, or evening. And as always, stay wild, star child.